This is In the Trenches, broadcast 47.
Welcome to In the Trenches, where entrepreneurs, artists, writers, designers, inventors, warriors, and leaders share their stories of doing the hard, creative work that impacts all of our lives. Let the journey inspire you to do something worthwhile, build something bold, and create your life's work. And now, your host, Tom Morkis.
Welcome back, everyone, to another broadcast of In the Trenches. Today's guest is Scott Barlow, the founder of Happen to Your Career. Scott, how's it going, man?
It's going awesome. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dig right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what is exactly Happen to Your Career. We'll start with you first, and then we'll get to your website and your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, long before Happen to Your Career, this is actually my second business. I had a bit of time in between. Way back when I was one of those folks that, went to college and had not a clue what I wanted to do. I mean, I was one of those people who switched majors 7-8 times, the whole works. And I started looking for an internship, not even necessarily thinking about a business, and realized there's a lot of crappy internships out there, right? There's a lot of stuff that doesn't give you experience. There's a lot of stuff that really isn't, entrepreneurial in any way whatsoever. And I started realizing that I wanted something more than that. And I guess, careful what you wish for, because ended up coming home with a small business in the painting and contracting industry. And that was my very, very first business. But, through that, I ended up learning that I loved some of the building and creation aspects of business. Not disappointed that I'm not, painting houses or doing residential or commercial work anymore or anything like that. But that's kind of how my journey started, really. And since then, I spent about 3 years doing that and left, sold the business and left for one of those stable corporate jobs, and promptly got fired about a year into that. So I guess so much for stability. But then, yeah, I know. But after that point in time, I had gotten married to my now wife, Alyssa, and we've had a couple of kids. And over the course of, I guess, about the last 6 years or so, I've encountered a lot of different people that really wanted to make different types of career transitions, whether it be inside the corporate world or whether it be, doing something on their own, whether it building it on the side or making a full-time transition. And that's something where I started doing coaching, and that's what I've been paid to do for the last 10 years. Different types of business development coaching and leadership coaching. And I started going and having coffee with people and just helping them with their problems. And this was about 6 years ago. And at the time, honestly, Tom, I was really just going for the coffee. I'm like, hey, maybe I'll be able to help them too. And found that I actually could offer something of value to them in helping them talk and work through these different types of career transitions, and going from what it was that they were doing and worn out and really, in jobs that they just flat out did not enjoy and stayed up late on Sunday nights to try and avoid going to work on Monday. And then, helping them make, that transition inside, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it happened to be, and into moving to doing something that actually used their strengths and actually, used what they could be good at. So that's what led me to Happen to Your Career. And really what we do is we help people go from where they're at to work that they love in a variety of different ways.
Yeah. So tell me, and correct me if I misinterpreted, but did you say this has been live for 10 years, or how long has Happen to Your Career been around for?
About 18 months.
18 months. Okay. So
Yep.
Yeah. So when it comes to this, like when you were actually first starting this out, like tell me about that process of like creating a website like this, knowing it's going to be coaching/consulting style business. And did you ever have an experience in that before you jump into this?
My coaching, and that's a little bit of what I was talking about. So I've been doing coaching professionally for when I had my first business, that's something I got really, really interested in and started developing myself in that way. But then the job that I left for and many of the jobs afterwards were coaching related. So that was very natural to me. That's something that I've done and developed for literally over 10 years at this point.
Okay, I see.
So that part was not new. It was the point in time, probably about 4 years ago when people started sending me gift cards and thank yous and and offering to pay. And it's like, wow, maybe there's something to this. So that was what led up to me really thinking about when I knew that I wanted to go back to my own business, when I knew that I wanted to get out of working for somebody else just because it didn't necessarily fit what I wanted long term. And to answer your question directly though, so I had some of that experience before on the coaching and technical skill side. In terms of like setting up a website and other things like that, I don't know. This is a strength / a curse at the same time. For some reason, I think that I can do it all, and I can usually learn fairly quickly whatever it happens to be, and that's a terrible thing for anybody who is entrepreneurial minded in any way whatsoever, or even creative minded in some ways too. So I did get some help initially. We launched the business, and I had somebody come on and help me with some of the WordPress stuff initially, and I had somebody doing graphic design and a few other just miscellaneous task type things. And but for the most part, I just figured it out for myself and dove in and learned, and wish I would have done it another way. Wish I would have taken on a few more partners to be able to set stuff up at first, or done some trades. And I guess there's a lot of different ways that could have happened, but for me, I really just dove in and said, "Hey, I'm going to figure this out."
Well, I think that's actually interesting, because I don't think anything you said there is rare, based on the conversations I have had. I mean, I obviously relate to that as well. So it's something that I do with basically every project. And I realize, okay, wait a second, I'm basically drowning here, and I got to figure it out. But, I guess you learn to swim quickly that way. So tell me a little bit about that process of diving in, kind of like taking on all these tasks yourself. You actually alluded to this or mentioned it directly, that you kind of wish you had partnered up or teamed up with some other people. Can you kind of dive a little bit more into that topic? Like, what makes you think that, having help would have been helpful, like teaming up with somebody would have been better, or a better way to get started?
Honestly, over the last, let's say 9 months or so, our business has really actually blossomed as I've not only developed relationships, but really, I guess, leveraged some of those relationships, if you want to call it that. But, as I have built relationships and know people that have different expertises in different areas, it's made my life so much easier. Even if I'm doing something myself, even if I'm doing the physical task myself, like let's say getting some legal help or some accounting help. I reached out to my accountant recently to try and understand some intricacies of taxes, I guess is actually what it was. Online taxes, state versus non, so on and so forth, and make sure that we are doing the right thing. And just having that resource and having her, my accountant, be able to share exactly, here's what you do, and tell me all this stuff in 5 minutes or less, and saving me all of this time in research on the internet. I mean, I could have gone on to Google, and I did spend a few minutes going on to Google before I realized, hey, this is a bad deal. I can just call my accountant, and she'll probably know off the top of her head. But getting all of that in 5 minutes or less versus spending potentially hours on the internet searching around trying to figure out how to do it myself would have been really, really, really nice way back when. So I'm glad for some of the experiences, like learning WordPress, and I'm glad for some of the experiences, understanding a lot of the technology and plugins and all of that other stuff with setting up the online components. But man, it would have been great to just call some people up and say, hey, here's what I need. What's the best and most efficient way I can do this?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about kind of that the start versus kind of where you're at now? I'm kind of curious about that. Obviously a lot of people who are listening, some have just started, some are considering starting, some probably have already been, in the trenches, so to speak, for a while. But I'm particularly curious about like that. When do you kind of mentioned, you alluded to this at least, that like in the last 9 months that things have been going, doing so much better, going so much better. So tell me a little bit about that. Like why, like what is noticeable? And then from that, are there lessons that we can draw from that? And maybe it is a little bit kind of what you said, like team up with people early on. But I'm curious, like what was it like in terms of the beginning, like getting clients versus what is it like now? What do the two businesses kind of look like in their evolution?
Yeah. And I guess the best way to answer your question is tell you a little bit about this failed Indiegogo campaign we had. So we decided, for some reason, that we were going to launch the business and launch our podcast with an Indiegogo campaign. And it was, I don't know, we were thinking very big thoughts, and we're like, this is going to be a great way to do this, and we'll be able to get exposure, and it's some of the stuff we need to do anyway. And we justified a whole bunch of different things. And it was a great experience because it taught us a lot of different things and forced us to go through a whole bunch of thought processes and creative thought processes, everything from really defining what the business was and who we were going to help, to what it was that we were going to offer, because we turned around and used that as some of the incentives or rewards on Indiegogo. Are you familiar with Indiegogo? I guess I should ask that first. You ever heard of that?
Yes.
It's kind of like a Kickstarter.
Right. And for the audience, it's just essentially
So
platform.
Absolutely. So if you're familiar with Kickstarter, Indiegogo is probably the second biggest and second most well-known platform. And we decided we were going to do that. We started trying to take on partners and realized very quickly we didn't know what we were doing. And we didn't get a lot of results out of that. Like not immediately. We didn't come anywhere close to our funding goal, which was around $10,000, and we were going about it all completely wrong. And for some reason, I think that we we were leaning towards the if you build it, they will come type mentality, which is clearly wrong. And even though we knew that way back when, I think we still fell into that trap to some degree. And we ended up being only like 20% to our funding goal and everything like that. But what we ended up getting out of that is starting to have some of those lessons early and change the way that we did business later on, specifically around relationships, and specifically around just focusing on helping people rather than getting stuff started. So that's really, and I know this is really a roundabout way to answer your question, but the difference between the beginning and the difference between now is now we're very focused on let's just help people one at a time. And let's just make their lives better one at a time. And I think then it was about, how do we be able to, just get started up, get some growth quickly, reach a lot of people, and all that stuff. And, that fundamental shift has just been all of the difference. In fact, it was last November. I still have stuff sitting on my wall right now. I'm sitting in my home studio, and it over on my wall, I'm looking at it right now. It says 1 year from now, what success looks like, and that was on November 12th. I think a lot of stuff, those things on top of it is let's just have 10 raving fans. Let's just help 10 people. To the degree where it changes their lives enough that that they want to support happen to your career in any way whatsoever, because they appreciate it so much. So that's really the difference in a nutshell. And when we started changing that mentality, and it was about 10 months ago, something along those lines, where we started getting serious about it. That's where we started being able to help people make shifts in a different way, and instead of just small changes. Recently in a membership group that we have called the Work You Love One Stop, we've been able to help people get negotiate a whole bunch of different increases with their employer so that they can focus writing on a book. We are helping a guy get into web design right now and has just taken some major steps and connected him up with a whole bunch of people to get his business started. We just had a person who shifted careers completely differently from communications to a training type platform and successfully did that. So, those are just a couple examples of a whole bunch of different things, but really that's what made it all the difference.
Yeah. So tell me about that part actually, because I am curious about this, and I feel like it's a question that a lot of anybody freelancing or anybody who does client-based work might be wondering is how do you get more clients, especially for something like this in a very noisy world. How do you stand out? How do you find your clients? Or how do they find you?
So it's been a process of scrounging, and I don't feel like I'm out of that yet. So I don't want to mislead anybody in any way. It's hard in any business, and I think since I had a successful business years ago, I got into this and thought it was going to be easy and underestimated a whole bunch of different things. First of all, thought for some reason online business would be different than regular business, and I approached it in a different way. But to answer your question about clients, the way that we're getting most of our clients are through relationships that we've already had. A lot of coaching clients have come through relationships that have been in existence for one way or another prior to them signing up for coaching and us accepting them for coaching. And in the case of, like our membership site, they've initially come on and built relationship through us or with us through our podcast, the Happen to Your Career podcast. And then, as we've grown to know them over time, it's become an added value to them and helped them already get started on their transition. It's become a no-brainer for them to, when we invite them into the site, being able to do that. So I actually get on the phone or get on Skype with a whole bunch of different people without ever charging them. And I'll typically get them started down their pathway. And at the same time, part of what I'm doing is assessing whether or not I want to continue to further work with them. And so it's kind of a both way fit type thing. So I'm almost screening my customers and allowing them to understand whether they want to be customers at the same time. So I don't know that that's unique. I've seen lots of other people do the same thing, but it's really two components that make it work there. I am one offering probably a lot of value and a lot of personal time compared to what other people are up front and not expecting a lot of return. And then I'm also trying to decide who I want to work with further on a regular basis. And that helps tremendously. It's helped create our, the Work You Love One Stop that our membership group, our private membership group that has grown that. And it's pretty amazing to see what's happened in terms of the people in there. They all support each other. And that's just been very, very cool to see and very cool to see grow, because it was, on that 1 year from now, what success looks like. That was one of the things that we had on the list.
It's very cool. I like that as just its own topic, the idea of like setting those goals and kind of watching as they progress, but also working toward it. But, I guess, I would maybe want to get into that a little bit. I think I want to take it back a little here and find out now,
sure,
kind of tied into this, but so you set those goals a year ago, you've met them, you exceeded them. So now what does it look like for you guys?
Well, I haven't met all of them.
Okay,
Some of them I've met, but others are, still a long ways from.
So then what are your goals, for now? Like, where do you see yourself in your company in a year from now? Like, how do you want to grow or scale or change over the course of the next year?
So over the course of the next year, we have to profoundly change the lives of 357 people. And that there's a lot of different ways we back into that number, to be honest with you. Part of that is a revenue goal. Part of that is a scaling goal and a growth goal for the business. But, that 357 number comes from all of those different places. And I identified where I wanted to spend the time for the business and what areas of the business wanted to grow the most. So I wanted to scale back the coaching, and do more of the, getting on the phone with people for free because I, quite frankly, enjoy those short bursts a little bit more, and then grow out our membership site, the Work You Love One Stop, and that group is primarily made up of two kinds of people. It's made up of people, first of all of them who are in jobs currently, but a little over half of the people in there are one day on their own. And a lot of them started from the place of they didn't exactly know how to do that, and they didn't know exactly what they wanted to do. And we've really helped them identify that and narrow that down and get clarity in those areas, and then start building a plan to make that happen. So, that's something that I've enjoyed the most out of anything that I've done. So I really wanted to double down on that. And I feel like that's where we've had the most success too. So that's the reason for that growth in that area. I don't know if it entirely answers your question though, Tom.
Yeah, no, for sure it does. I think it in a great way too, because I've always just find it fascinating, depending on where people are at and in what they're creating or what they're developing, to see that, because obviously if you're not growing, you're dying, or whatever the phrase, the term might be, the concept. But I always find it fascinating to see where people are at and see where they're kind of their direction is headed or where they want to go to. So I think you definitely did answer that question. So
hey, I've got a question for you though first.
Yeah, go for it.
So I was right before I got on with you, I was I typed your name into my email to see if I don't know, we'd ever connected someplace along the way. What popped up instead of any emails or anything that we'd send each other was an email from Scott Densmore, and it was I think it was like a hey, congratulations in the community type thing. Was that the same Tom Morks? Was that talking about?
You know what? I think it actually was. I think he did mention me in a blog post or something like that. When was it? It must have been a while ago.
So it looked like it was a year ago.
Yeah,
right around a year ago, roughly.
Yeah, that was
a year late. Congratulations for all of that, but I just thought that was kind of funny.
Well, yeah, I know it's a small world, isn't it? This funny reminder. I actually totally forgot about that, but he did. That is very cool. It's always nice to get a shout out every now and then. But hey, man.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, or let's go ahead and tell people where they can reach out and connect with you. Where's best to reach out to connect with you and find out more about what you do and maybe even get involved in your programs.
Absolutely. So the very best way to reach us is happentoyourcareer.com. So that's our main website. We've got several, but that's our home. That's the homepage. Tells a lot about me, our company, our organization, and some other things there. So happentoyourcareer.com is where you can go. If you are in the place where you want to do something different, haven't quite pinned down exactly what that is, and want some help. We were actually getting so many emails like that, Tom, that we ended up creating a resource for people specifically to help them get clarity in that. And we made it free too. So it's a free 8-day course. You can go to happentoyourcareer.com /one-stop and be able to enroll in that course. And that helps people get that clarity that they're looking for, especially if they're looking to start something creative or looking to start, a side business or even, move to their own type of thing. So those are some of the places you can connect with me, certainly on Twitter as well. Scott A. Barlow on Twitter, Facebook, any place friends were made, Tom, really.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks so much, Scott. I just want to say, thank you so much for being on the show. Really great stuff. I find your story fascinating, and I know the audience did too. I think it's a really cool look to see somebody starting like this from scratch and having as much success as you are and growing it just less than 2 years out, which is pretty awesome. So, hey, thank you so much for being on the show, Scott. I really appreciate it.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, Tom. I appreciate it.
And that wraps up another broadcast of In the Trenches. If you're interested in checking out the show notes, just head over to tommorkus.com/podcast to see our latest episodes. Also, I just wanted to give a quick update to fans and listeners of In the Trenches, and specifically what I'm working on right now. For the past 2 years, I've been publishing books, my own and others, through Insurgent Publishing, my boutique publishing company. In the past 6 months alone, I've helped 4 individual authors launch their books to bestseller on Amazon, including Dan Norris's The 7-Day Startup and David Nihill's Do You Talk Funny, among others. And both of those books are still top of the charts months after launch. I've learned two important things from all this. Number one, that people still read books. And believe it or not, they're willing to pay for the good ones. And number two, the $60 billion book industry is only getting bigger and the barrier to entry is only getting lower, which means access to this market has never been closer to the average writer, blogger, or author. It is literally within the grasp of anyone who wants it. But you need to know how to approach it the right way, with patience, with a strategy, and with the right implementation and execution. That's why I've been able to launch so many bestsellers, many that are still top of the charts, because we brought great books to the people who wanted and would pay for them. No slimy sales tactics, just honest, powerful marketing. Now, I want to show other authors and publishers how to do the same. 4 months ago, I launched the pre-beta to a new super secret platform called Publishers Empire. In that time, I've helped a dozen authors and publishers start to bring their ideas to life. And with their help and feedback, we've quickly developed what is, in my opinion, the best, most comprehensive publishing training platform in the world. And now I'm getting ready to open the doors up to a few more students. So if you're interested in being part of a tight-knit family of publishers who help and support one another through their writing and publishing projects, if you want access to over 100 HT training videos to take you through the writing and publishing process, if you want access to proven copy and paste book marketing and sales copy, stuff that we've used to launch bestsellers, and if you'd like professional book covers and templates you could plug your own work into and look like a pro in minutes, and if you'd like all of that while getting the chance to be mentored by me, check out publishersempire.com and sign up to be notified when we launch. That's www.publishersempire.com. I hope to see you there. As always, this is Tom Morkis. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Thank you for listening to In the Trenches. Your creative work doesn't stop here. Join the resistance, the small but growing army of entrepreneurs and artists putting a dent in the world at www.tommorkis.com. Never fight alone. Join the resistance.